Welcome everyone to the Mad Max Loco recap. Talk about a lot of stuff tonight, including USCB's historic week, or more so, just over a week, as if you want to consider last weekend. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to thank everyone for joining here on the Mad Max Loco recap. A lot to talk about. Obviously, the NFL draft just took place this week, but before we get into that, I want to say congratulations to USCB softball for their incredible series this week against the University of North Georgia, who, by the way, that softball program is ranked eighth in all of D2 softball. And they got the series win 2-1. Won the second game yesterday, first game, and the game they had today. So, congratulations to them on a historic series. But not only did they beat the number 8 team in the country, they also, with their win yesterday, in game 2, clinched their first Peach Belt Conference tournament appearance. So congratulations to them on that. What a series it was for them. I mean, you look at the series. They started out with a 7-5, or excuse me, a 7-3 loss to North Georgia. They actually had the lead in that game. They were up 3-2 going into the sixth inning, where North Georgia scored 3 runs in the sixth and then 2 more in the seventh to take that 7-3 win. Then you go into game 2 on Saturday afternoon, and Sierra Kinlaw was on the mound for them, the number 1 pitcher for USCB softball, and has been for the last couple seasons. Has a great game. USCB gets up early with a 1-0 lead in the first. North Georgia would tie it in the top of the third. Then USCB would score 3 runs in the bottom of the third to take the 4-1 lead. They would add another one in the fourth to make it 5-1. Then things got very interesting as North Georgia tied the game up at 5 apiece with 4 runs in the top of the fifth. Then in the bottom of the sixth, USCB would answer back and score 2 more runs to make it a 7-5 ball game. And on top of that, they shut North Georgia down in the top of the seventh to take that win. And with that win, would clinch their spot in the Peach Belt Conference. They would get the 8th seed in the Peach Belt Conference. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But today's game, Madison Murphy on the mound for USCB to start. She would have a great first, actually really great 4 innings. North Georgia would take the lead in the top of the second with a 2-0 lead, scored 2 in the top of second. USCB would answer back in the bottom of the third. They'd score 5 runs in the bottom of the third. North Georgia would answer with 2 more in the fourth. And then USCB basically shut down North Georgia and hung on to the 5-4 win to take that series against the number 1 team in the Peach Belt and the number 8 team in the country for D2 softball. And by the way, just to add on to that, this is the same North Georgia team that's probably going to be facing USCB softball in the first round of the playoffs. So that should be very interesting. And I'm intrigued to see how it goes, being with the way that USCB definitely handled this. It's special because I watched USCB softball last season. I did a lot of games on the microphone for them, doing broadcasting and stuff for them. I got to do a few of their games this year, especially at the beginning of the season. And then I got busy coaching Hardyville baseball. You look on top of what everything softball has done. I mean, you look at what their season was. Obviously, that's their last series before playoffs start. And I was very intrigued to see what they would do at the start of the season. They really showed out at the start of the season. I mean, they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of their first 8 games to start at. 8-1. Then they lost. 7-1, and then you play Francis Marion, you lose 2 of those, and then they really went on a tear after that. I mean, they won how many in a row? They won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row before they faced UNC Pembroke, and it really was the story of the rest of the season. And when Peach Belt Conference came into play, obviously I knew Peach Belt Conference is one of the toughest conferences in all of Division II sports, especially for softball, considering that you have a top 10 ranked team in your conference. it becomes a very difficult conference, and all of them are pretty close together. I mean, USCB softball finishes getting the 8th seed. They'll be playing the 1 seed. Obviously, that is the team they just beat out in the series this past weekend. And they're going to be playing them in the first round of the playoffs. I believe it's a 1 game elimination. So that should be very interesting to see if USCB can get a win against North Georgia. They finished the regular season with a 29-23 record, 8-16 in conference play. Again, very tough conference. However, I just want to say their home advantage must be big because they finished with an 18-6 record at home this season. Away games were their struggle. They finished with 10-17 record in away games, and they had a 1 neutral game. I'm trying to remember where that was, but um, they would get that 1 neutral win. Um, and a great season for them. I mean, so much better than last season. I mean, look at the record from last year. It was truly, really, I mean, like such an improvement this year compared to last year. I mean, 29-23 this year. They were 20-25 last year. They only had 4 conference wins last year. Um, and the biggest struggle they had was their road games. They were 3-14 on the road last season. So I mean, they've recruited well. They've brought in great players. They added to the pitching, which was really the biggest need for them because honestly, last season all they really had was 3 pitchers. You had Kinlaw as your number one, and then your 2 and 3 weren't nearly as strong as Sierra Kinlaw. It just wasn't the case. And you bring in a couple more pitchers during the offseason. You have them come in. Either I believe they were both transfers, and you bolster up your pitching department, and that was really the biggest need. You didn't add a whole lot to your offense and your defense really, because you already had a solid core there to begin with. You go in, you get what you need, which was pitching. They now have, if I'm not mistaken, they have 5 pitchers in their current rotation of pitchers that they have. And Sierra Kinlaw is not the only solid pitcher they have this season. They have 3 pitchers who have been pretty solid. I mean, Madison Murphy's one of them. She had a great game today. Sierra Kinlaw, obviously the ace of the team. Um, who else? Let's take a look at the rest of the pitchers because there are a couple that are not mentioned on here. Let's see, pitching. So Kinlaw had game one. She pitched the entire game in that loss, that 7-3 loss to North Georgia. So she got him back today. She really did. You look at some of the other pitchers they got. I mean, Cassie Brundage. Oh my goodness, I forgot about Cassie Brundage. Cassie Brundage probably has been the number 2 toward to Sierra Kinlaw this year. She's been outstanding. And I got to watch her in a game earlier in the season, and she played lights out. I mean, she's really improved. I mean, she's been a great asset for the team, and so of course, on top of all of them winning the PBC and obviously winning the series against North Georgia, on top of that, it was their final home series for some of these seniors. So it was obviously senior day. I believe that was on. I believe that was today. So and there are quite a few seniors to talk about here, and it's a special group. I mean, you have I think 7 seniors on this team this season, and so it's really really great to see them um, get to the postseason for their final time as a USCB Sand Shark. So really special weekend for USCB softball, and I can't help but think I kind of saw it coming with this team. I just knew they were maybe a couple pitchers, maybe a couple key position players away from being a really solid team. And the funny thing is they really didn't overly bolster their core, their position players much. It was mainly the pitching that they worked on during the offseason. And it showed. It showed this season. I mean, you finished with a winning record compared to having a record under 500 last year. You have an over 500 record. Um, I believe this season you finish uh, 2 games. No, not 2 games. Excuse me. They finished 6 games over 500. I mean, that's impressive, very impressive. And what this program has been building towards is a team that's going to be extremely competitive starting next season. Really, I mean, they were competitive this year. They had some real close games, um, and so I some of those games they could have won and they didn't, and it's fine. It's okay. It sometimes happens. That's just how softball and baseball goes. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and that's really kind of the thing with all sports. But I tell you what, though, Cody Yeski, the head coach for USCB softball, has done a tremendous job building this program over the last few years, and to see what they are this year. I got to watch a lot of games from them last year, and to see what they turned into this year, it was really special. It was. So I look at that and I say, what's next? What's the next step for USCB softball? And only time will tell. We'll have to see what that looks like next season. But there's a chance that they could beat North Georgia in this first round, and we'll see who they play in the next round, if that comes to be. So, final thought on that: congratulations to USCB softball on making it to the playoffs, beating and winning the series against the number 8 team in all of D2 softball, North Georgia. I remember last year some controversy took place when I think it was at the beginning of the season last year. USCB softball was on the road. They were playing North Georgia and they lost by 1 in the final game. And it was some controversial decision. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was a controversial decision and it costed USCB a game. Now they got swept in that series, if I'm not mistaken. This one kind of revenge, if you ask me. It's kind of revenge. Like you guys took one away from us, fine. We'll take a whole series away from you. And sure enough, they did. They obviously lost the first game. Then they won the next two, and they fought hard in that one because they knew how important this series was. They needed to win at least one game. Not only did they win one, but they won two and won the series. It's impressive. It just shows the resilience that this softball program has. And what they have shown this season to me is they're on the right path to becoming a team that's going to be a mainstay in the Peach Belt Conference, for the foreseeable future. Um, so, congratulations to USCB softball. I look forward to seeing what they do in the playoffs. Obviously, more than likely they'll be playing University of North Georgia, who they just beat 2 out of 3 games. So I think it's on our side going into this one. So we'll see what happens. So congratulations to them. Now, the other side of the coin would be USCB baseball. Now, they also had a chance to make the playoffs this weekend. Unfortunately, things did not go their way. And when I say things did not go their way, it really didn't go their way. Because if I'm not mistaken, what they needed was basically 2 wins in this series against USC Aiken at home. By the way, yesterday was a Saturday double double, so both softball and baseball were playing games uh, on their fields yesterday. So, with that being said, baseball needed pretty much 2 wins against USC Aiken, and one thing to go on top of that is they needed Augusta, who they lost the series to early in the season. Actually, the first Peach Bowl conference series for USCB baseball that this season. They needed Augusta to lose a game, at least lose 2 of the 3 games, and in turn, if I'm not mistaken, Augusta was playing Flagler University. Let's see here. Augusta. I'm gonna get it up here for you guys. BASEBALL. Let's see here. How did they do today? They did play a game today, if I'm not mistaken. Um, let's see. So we go to the bottom of the list. Flagler. So they lost today, but they won both of their games on Friday and Saturday. So with them winning 2 of 3 games, essentially, even if USCB won 2 of 3 games, it took them out of the playoffs. They had a bigger mountain to climb than softball did. So, in reality, that's just what it is. Um, the other thing I would say is Honestly, if I'm giving my honest opinion regarding USCB baseball this season, I'm kind of disappointed. I really am. I don't like to say that because I do support USCB baseball, but I have a feeling like I'm not the only one who's thinking this. I mean, they finished last year. By the way, I'll get to the positives from this baseball season in a second, but I want to like reiterate. Last year finished with a 13-31 record, uh, 8 wins, 19 losses in conference play. You go to this season, you expect to have a better season. You get on the right track, and in reality, it just didn't happen. I mean, honestly, if I'm seriously though, a worse record this year than last year. A 9-37 record, 5-22 in conference play. I just I I honestly don't know what to say about USCB baseball. I love them and I will always be supportive of USCB baseball. But I gotta criticize them sometimes. Every now and then I gotta put a little criticism on them because I feel like a lot of us expected more than what we saw this season out of them. We expected them to make the Peach Bowl Conference tournament at least as an 8 seed. You know, I really thought would see them as an 8 seed this season. I said to myself at the beginning of the year, I was like, I really like how this team's looking. They got a lot of new players, a lot of different players from around the country have transferred into USCB, and I'm like, this could be a really good thing. And it didn't come to fruition. It just never worked. I don't understand. The one thing I would say is if you look at USCB's baseball season, granted, they started out with a horribly rough schedule. I mean, they played to start off the year, obviously, they played against North Greenville at home. North Greenville at the time, if I'm not mistaken, was ranked fourth in the country. So, like, it was never going to happen. But the first game of that series was a 13-11 loss in extra innings. And I said to myself, if they can play like this for most of their games this season, they're gonna win some games. They're gonna be really competitive in Peach Bowl Conference play. That's honestly that's what I thought. I was proven wrong, it's just what it is. You know they ended up losing all 4 games in that series. You play Albany State. Albany State's a strong program. Following North Greenville, you get your first win against Albany State in that game 3, 13-6. Then you beat Savannah State, and I'm like, ooh, they're getting on a roll. They won 2 in a row. Let's see if they can keep this going. Well, then they had to travel down to Lakeland and play Florida Southern, the number 12 team in the country. I mean, at that time they were number 12 in the country. I don't know what they are now. And at that time, I was like, it is Florida Southern, but I think it was twice in that series, and this became a trend with USCB baseball. Twice, twice in that series, they were ahead going into I think the final 3 innings and lost the lead and ended up losing the game. 2 out of 3 games, they could have actually won that series had they not ended up losing the lead. Then they play Middle Georgia midweek game, doesn't really matter. You lose 10-0. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I had a bit of a cow about it at first, and I was like, how can you lose to Middle Georgia? But then you realize they're just figuring out players at that point, and it's a midweek game. They're not going to play their best players. So then that leads into their first conference series against Augusta. And Augusta going into this series had a worse record than USCB, which is crazy to think about, but it's true. So I'm thinking if we can get 2 out of 3 in this series, I think we're going to be okay this year. Well, they proceeded to win the first game, and I was like, ooh, great start. 12-2 win. They're on the right track. Then they proceeded, if I'm not mistaken, they had, let's see, they lost 8-6 in the second game and then lost 11-5 in the third game to lose that series. And at that moment, I just thought, I don't know what to think about this team. I honestly saw them winning 2 out of 3 games in that series, and they proceeded to lose 2 out of 3 rather than win 2 out of 3. And it's ridiculous, that I have to, say the fact that if I'm being honest, I was furious. I was furious. First series of the conference series, excuse me, and I was furious because I genuinely thought we should beat Augusta, especially with how bad they were playing, and they did not have as tough of a schedule going into that series as USCB did. And so I look at all of it and I said, how do you lose 2 out of 3 to Augusta? And I started to realize what the problem was. Now, the one positive out of this season is their offense actually looked pretty solid. I mean, it was a solid looking offense, had some power in the lineup, which is a significant improvement compared to last season. Which, by the way, last season they didn't have a home run until their series against Claflin, which was, I think, in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season was when they got their first home runs. They got their first home runs this year in their first series of the season against North Greenville, and I said, "Ooh, this offense looks kind of dangerous," you know. And I I said to myself, "That is a huge positive," and it really is a huge positive to have power in your batting lineup, to have power in your offense compared to what you had last season. And I was impressed with what I was looking at. Then following Augusta, and it started becoming a recurring theme. Yeah, you get swept by Georgia Southern, you lose to Edward Waters in Jacksonville, then you get swept by Georgia College, then you get swept by Emory Riddle in a midweek series. Then you get swept by North Georgia. Then you play a game against Augusta and you beat them, but it doesn't count as a conference game because it's just an exhibition, a friendly, put in terms. Then you go on the road and you lose 3 straight against Columbus State. You beat Edward Waters at home. It's a good way to come back from. And then you proceed to lose all 3 games against Lander. And at that point, I just kind of started noticing that playoffs might not happen the way they were going. And we all thought they're not making playoffs this year. Then they lose to Middle Georgia again at home. That Middle Georgia team must be strong this year. But then they get their first, this is crazy to say, but they get their first series win of the season at home against Claflin. They swept all 3 games. Granted, Claflin not really that good. I don't know if they've actually won a game in conference play in more than 2 years. I mean, that just shows you. Yes, we got the sweep. That's great. That's great. We got a series sweep. We got 3 wins in conference play in one series. That's fantastic. But it's Claflin. It's Claflin. They have not had a. I don't think they've actually had a conference win in the Peach Bowl Conference for more than 2 years. I mean, honestly, I don't think I'm pretty sure they haven't had a win in conference play for the Peach Bowl Conference in 2 years, if not more. So it's a great series win, a great sweep, but it's also Claflin. Then you play Flagler. Granted, on the road, uh, always going on the road is never easy, especially when you have to go all the way to St. Augustine. But you get a win in that series. You win your final game in that series after losing the first 2. So that's good to see. So then after those 4 wins in 2 series, you started to notice they're not out of the playoff picture yet. And I said to myself, when Wes Kerr actually mentioned that USCB still has a chance of making playoffs, I was shocked. I was shocked to see this Sand Sharks baseball team actually still have a shot at playoffs. I didn't think they had a chance. But with those 4 wins, 3 of them against Claflin and the one against Flagler, it put them in contention. But they had a mountain to climb. a big mountain. Basically, what they needed going into this past weekend series against USC Aiken was they needed 2 wins against USC Aiken. Doesn't matter what order they come in. They needed 2 wins against Aiken, and they needed Augusta to lose at least one game for USCB to get into the playoffs as the final spot, the 8th seed in the playoffs. So I'm thinking there's a chance. USC Aiken's okay, but they're not great. So Buford's going into game one on Friday. Buford takes a 3-run lead after the first. I'm thinking, oh, they're on the right track. Then USC Aiken scores seven runs in the fourth. And I'm thinking, we might be in trouble. Going into the bottom of the sixth, USC Buford scores 4, ties the game up. And I'm like, ooh, fascinating. Then proceeded to allow Aiken, they proceeded to allow Aiken to score 2 runs in the top of the 7th, 1 run in the top of the 8th. USC Buford would answer back with 1 in the bottom of the 8th. And then going into the top of the 9th, they shut down Aiken, gives them a chance to score 2 runs to tie it, 3 runs to win it, and they couldn't get it done. Great game. Fantastic game, just not the way you wanted to go. It was a hard-fought game by USCB, but nonetheless, just another, kind of tragic loss. Then you go into Saturday, and you get up to a 2-1 lead after 1, a 3-1 lead after 2. Then the fourth, I don't know why, a recurring theme in this series is the fourth inning, USC Aiken scores 6 runs. So it's a 6-3 game at that point. Score 2 more in the 6th to make it an 8-3 game. Then scored 3 in the 9th, and that was the final score, 12-3. Then you go into Sunday. Actually, pretty decent game, to be honest. USC gets out to an early lead. Seeing the theme here. Scored 2 in the bottom of the 2nd, 1 in the bottom of the 4th to take a 3-0 lead. Then in the 5th, USC Aiken scores 5. I mean, big innings by the opposing team is not going to help you get wins. 5 runs in the 5th. Then they proceeded to score 4 more in the 9th to make it a 9-3 ball game. And then USCB scored 2 in the bottom of the 9th, but couldn't get the job done. So they lose all 3. Recurring theme here. I mean, it was hard-fought games. USCB knew what was at hand. They needed to get at least 2 wins. They just couldn't get it done. And it's fine. It's fine. It's not how you want the season to end, but it's fine. And it tells me that honestly, I don't know what it tells me because this is a team I thought was going to have a much better season, and they didn't. They had a worse season in terms of record and stats and stuff like that. Obviously, a tougher schedule compared to last season, but they had a worse record this year in conference play than they did last season. Overall record doesn't matter because you look at the beginning of USCB's schedule this year, it was ridiculously tough. I mean, you played 2 ranked opponents at the time within a span of, I think, 3 weeks to start the season off. And, forget the overall record. You look at the conference record, that's the one that I think people are going to pay attention to and say, how? How? I mean, you look at the record this season in conference play, 5-22. 5 wins. That's all they got in conference play. You look at their record from last season, 8-19. They had more wins in conference play last year than they did this year. And for me, it's disappointing. It's very disappointing. And it tells me, in my opinion, I think there might be some changes coming. What those changes are, I have no idea. Not a clue. But I can tell you this. There's going to have to be some changes made. because clearly, no matter how much you've brought in terms of players from around the country, you were worse off than you were last season in terms of how you played. Worse off. And I honestly couldn't tell you how to fix it because I mean, it's not my area of expertise when it comes to fixing a team. I mean, I'm trying to do it with my own high school baseball team, which is, you know, a a job in and of itself. But to fix a program that is going downhill rather than uphill in terms of success from last season to this season, I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. And I'm going to leave that up to USCB to figure it out. But I just have a weird feeling. I just have a weird feeling that USCB is going to make some changes this offseason because it can't keep going like this, especially next season, because next season will technically be the first season that excuse, that USCB baseball is fully fledged members in NCAA, and they will be able to compete not only for a conference tournament, but also for a shot at the NCAA tournament. Do I think that's going to happen next year? No. No, I don't. Not with how this season went. And I really hope that USCB proves me wrong. I really do. I love everything about USCB baseball. I grew up watching baseball. I actually used to watch USCB baseball back in the day. I enjoyed watching USCB baseball, and I've always been a fan of the Sand Sharks. But if you're a fan like I am, and now someone who covers USCB baseball like me, as both a fan and an analyst and a journalist and media personnel, someone who not only supports and shows up for USCB baseball, but also is a fan of watching USCB baseball, I'm frustrated. I'm honestly frustrated. And I don't know what to say that's positive other than they had a much better offense this year. And the starting rotation at the end of the season really started showing up, but it was almost too late for them to show up. But I can tell you the biggest thing they're going to change next season is how that bullpen works, how the bullpen operates, because the bullpen was the kryptonite for USCB baseball this season. Multiple times this season where they had a lead and lost it when the bullpen came into play. It's ridiculous. And it breaks my heart to see it the way it is right now with Sandshark baseball. I mean, they fought hard at the end, and I applaud them for that. They fought hard, but it wasn't enough. And they didn't make playoffs. I projected them to make playoffs this season. They didn't make playoffs. That's frustrating, especially when they came so close last season to making playoffs. They had another shot again to make playoffs this year, and it was a big mountain to climb, but they weren't even close to climbing the top of the mountain this season. Not even close. When they had their chance and they had a mountain to climb, it almost was like they didn't, they didn't even come close to climbing halfway up that mountain. And it doesn't help when Augusta, you know, when Augusta wins 2 out of 3 against Flagler. That does not help at all. But to lose all 3 to USC Aiken, you weren't helping yourself in any way, shape, or form. It sucks. It really sucks, and I feel bad for those players. But they fought with everything they had, in those last couple weeks to even give them a chance at playoffs, and I applaud them for that. I do. So yeah, that's my thought on USCB baseball. Tough way to end the season. Obviously, you get swept against Aiken. Um, but there were some great moments this year. And I look forward to many more fantastic moments. Hopefully, with me on the microphone for some of the games next season, hopefully you can get to hear my voice next season for USCB baseball because I will always support them. No matter how frustrating it gets sometimes with USCB baseball, I will always support them, and I will always love Sandshark baseball. And it just sucks. It just sucks. All right, now to the other big part of USCB sports this past um, week plus. Because last weekend, while we were all busy with the RBC Heritage, USCB men's golf and women's golf were playing in the Peach Belt Conference Championships. And guess where they were at? Augusta. Not at Augusta National. No, not a chance. I honestly, how cool would that be to play there for a conference championship game? That'd be pretty cool, really cool. But no, they were at Forest Hills Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen pictures of Forest Hills, absolutely beautiful, beautiful course. But the big story, well, I'll start with women's. Um, the, the biggest one for women's golf. Women's golf finished fourth in the Peach Belt Conference team leaderboard, but the player leaderboard. McLean Neal. How about that? Finishes at even par for the tournament and wins the individual Peach Belt individual champion for women's golf. Great moment for McLean Neal. Really happy for that women's golf team. And actually, to go on top of that, we had one, two, three, four golfers in the top 25. How about that? That's pretty cool. Jessica Edwards and Camila Giordani finished 20th and 21st. And then Florence Fan finished tied for 24th to finish that tournament out. Then towards the bottom was, well, actually, no, that's it. That's it for the scores for women's. Team leaderboard, let's take a look here. USCB finished fourth out of 7 teams who were there. Lander would get the team win in the team conference title, finishing at 33 over par as a team. USC Beaufort was 85 over par as a team. They were quite a few shots behind Flagler and North Georgia, but finishing fourth is really impressive for this women's team. So congratulations to McLean Neal on her individual title. That's really, really special. And congratulations to the women's team for finishing fourth. But the real story of that weekend was, well, USCB men's golf. And they finished as conference champions. How about that? How great is that? Conference champions, first conference title in the school's history. So very special, first Peach Belt Conference title in school's history. USC Beaufort, USCB finished as a team at 13 under par at Forest Hills Golf Club. A full 8 shots, if I'm not mistaken, ahead of I would call them our rival, USC Aiken, who finished as a team as 5 under par. But Eric Rengart finishes first, gets the individual title, and finished the tournament at 9 under par. 9 under par. And that's a tough Forest Hills Golf Club, Forest Hills Club. Really tough course, actually. So 9 under par is really, really special. Finishing tied for 10th was Aaron Williams. Nicholas Norman was also tied for 10th. Who else? Nikolai Holm was tied for 15th. Ellis Bright tied for 21st. Who else? And that's the men's golf team, all right there. and they all finished in the top 25. Um, that's that's really special, and to see them get um, the school's first Peach Belt Conference championship is really just really something special. And I'm very excited to see what the future of these two golf programs are because if the men's team is able to get a conference championship, watch out for the women's team. They're coming. They're going to get their first in the next couple of years, I think, because that's a growing program as well. That's a stronger program than that women's golf program was last season. I really like where this is going with men's and women's golf. But then again, they live in one of the greatest areas to play golf and train for golf and all that stuff. Their home course is Oldfield. That's a that's a pretty great course to have as your training facility and as your home course. It's pretty cool. And so congratulations to the men's team for winning the Peach Bowl Conference championship. Congratulations to McLean Neal for getting an individual championship, as well as Eric Rengart for also getting a individual championship as well. So that is the happier note. Following my baseball rant, I guess I would say. Um, but what else went on here this week? Um, let's see here. Well, apart from my Hardyville High School Hurricanes getting to be playing in the playoffs in just over a week from now, um, we got one more game this week against Whale Branch, and then we get ready for playoffs. First round of the playoffs start next week, and that's not just for Hardyville High School. That's for pretty much all of South Carolina High School League baseball and softball playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, start uh, not this week, but next week. If I'm not mistaken, ours I believe starts. If I'm not mistaken, on the probably the 8th. So that's over a week from now, almost a week and a half from now. So very excited for South Carolina High School baseball and softball playoffs to begin. Of course, Hardyville isn't the only one who are probably going to be going to the playoffs. May River will probably be going to the playoffs. Beaufort High School baseball will be going to the playoffs. Um, Bluffton probably might be in contention for the playoffs as well. They're sitting right up there. And Hilton Head's going to try to get a spot in. So like a lot of teams out of that 4A region is going to probably have a shot at a playoff spot. Especially with how they run RPI. So we'll see how that goes for them. Softball, May River definitely getting in. Paulding County is also getting in the 4A region. I mean, who else? JP2 might be also getting into their softball playoffs. I'll have to take a look at that tonight and get a better thought process on it. The problem I've had this spring is I've been so focused on my team that I haven't been able to fully focus on other teams around the area, but I've been keeping a close eye on them. How about Skeeza baseball? Obviously, Hilton Head Christian, Hilton Head Prep. I believe playoffs start for them this week. So very intrigued. Obviously, they are now both of them are no longer in the same region together and the same division. I believe Prep's in 3A, Hilton Head Christian's in 4A. Prep has 2 losses on the year. They've had an incredible baseball season, and I have a feeling they got a smooth looking run towards potentially a semifinal appearance and possibly a state championship appearance. Um, Christian Academy has a bit tougher of a road to go, although I believe they start off against, if I'm not mistaken, Lawrence Manning, which they lost both games to Lawrence Manning by one run in each game, and one of them was actually very controversial. And you can find one of the LowcoSports Lowdown shows because we saw a video of it, and I just looked at it and said, "That's the dumbest call I've ever seen by an umpire." So, whatever. So Christian County has a bit of a tougher road. They are not a 1 seed this year. I think they're a 4 seed. If I'm not mistaken, they ever so slightly got into the playoffs. So yeah. Prep and Christian Academy are probably in the playoffs. I think JP2 did not. JB2 did not make playoffs this year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look here. Skiza. ALL. See if I can get the brackets up here. Let's see here. That's 2025. Do we have the brackets? Oh, come on. They gotta be somewhere. That's basketball brackets. Let's see. That's 2024. I can't seem to find the current playoff brackets. I seriously, I hate Skeez's website, man. It really does make me angry. But we will probably be taking a look at some of that situation tomorrow night on Loco Sports Lowdown. Um, so with that being said, um, the other thing that went on this past week, of course, was the NFL draft. And I think everyone was a little bit intrigued by the NFL draft just because of just how far Shador Sanders fell. Um, and the NFL kind of, I don't want to like assume, but I mean, as a player, he is 100% should have been a first round pick, but he wasn't. He dropped to the fifth round. I think it was pick 144 to the Cleveland Browns. And the funniest thing for the Browns is they probably had the steal of the draft because they got a first round pick for $31 million cheaper uh, because they drafted him in the fifth round. And by the way, it's open season for that quarterback room. You look at the quarterback room right now for Cleveland. Deshaun Watson's probably going to be out this year with the Achilles injury that he had, and it sounds like he's going to be out for the entire season. You got Joe Flacco, who's I think 39, 40 years old, something like that, and still playing. Give him credit on that. And still plays at a pretty good pace. So you got Deshaun Watson, you got Joe Flacco. Desaad's going to be out, so Joe Flacco's the only one. Then they drafted Dylan Gabriel, I think, in the third round. Which, by the way, it's crazy to think that Dylan Gabriel is going to be making more money on his rookie contract than Shador Sanders. And Shador Sanders is that third quarterback. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Kenny Pickett's also in that list, too. God, I forget they traded and picked up Kenny Pickett from the Eagles. So Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Shador Sanders. Wide open. It's seriously wide open. Uh, it's hunting season for the Cleveland Browns. They're going to be hunting to see who's going to be the quarterback out of those four guys for next season. And by the way, if Shador Sanders becomes the player that we all think he's going to be, the question then is, where does Deshaun Watson go? Wherever he goes, Cleveland Browns are going to make some money off of it. That's the other like plus side of things. Because over the years, Cleveland has been notorious for making horrible quarterback decisions. They played smart this year because usually they don't have a huge quarterback room. They do this year, which means they can make choices they have not been able to make in quite some time because they keep having a new starting quarterback every year, and it's annoying. It's honestly annoying. And as you know, Marcus Walsh could tell you because he is a Cleveland Brown fan. He's more of a Falcons fan than he is a Browns fan, which I like. And I very much like it. For those who don't know, I'm a huge Atlanta Falcons fan, so I do love Marcus Walsh for that. But he is also a Cleveland Browns fan because he is from Ohio. Um, and he, as a Browns fan, could tell you it's a new quarterback to start every year. It's honestly frustrating. Very frustrating. However, they had the steal of the draft with getting Shador Sanders at 144. Now, I know a lot of people think the reason he fell was just because of his attitude. I don't think that's really the case. I mean, for as bad as he did in the formal interviews, from what it sounded like, and that article, if you haven't read it, there's an article out by NFL Network's Eric Pelissero, and he had interviewed a longtime assistant NFL coach, and basically with that longtime assistant coach, who's probably been in hundreds of interviews over his time in the NFL, with players that will potentially be draft picks. He said this is the worst interview he's been in his life. And if that was the same for a bunch of other teams, I can see why he fell, but I can't see why he fell that far. I can't. People say it has to do with his father, Dion. Really? I don't see it. What does Dion have to do with this? Look, if Dion ends up coaching the NFL, that's his problem. But it shouldn't be Shador Sanders that gets, absolutely flamed and sent to the wolves because of it. But he fell all the way to the 5th round, and I was sitting there that day, and I'm just thinking, if he keeps falling like this, there will be no draft picks left for him. And I just thought, how far does he fall? Sure enough, like 5 minutes later, he gets drafted by the Browns. And I was shocked that the Browns picked up him because I didn't think they were going to after drafting Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd. And I'm thinking, well, they might be out of the equation. And then they picked him up. Excuse me. They picked him up. And they got the steal of the century for that one. I mean, you got a 1st-round quarterback for $31 million cheaper than what he would have been if you actually drafted him in the 1st round. $31 million cheaper. That's a steal. That's more than a steal. That's just I don't know what it is. It's more than the steal. Put it that way. $31 million cheaper for a 1st-round pick. It's pretty impressive. Okay. I think I've covered everything this week. A lot going on next week. Let me get up the schedule here. Our LowcoSports schedule. Let's see if I can get it up here. Where is it? Is that it here? Yes, it is. What is today? Today is the 27th. All right, so Monday the 28th. Here we go. So Hilton Head is taking on May River on Monday for baseball. Then softball, Buford at Woodland, Colleton County at Barnwell, Hilton Head Prep against Justin Jarrett's own Hardyville Diamond Canes. Then girls across Hilton Head High School at Bishop England. That should be very interesting, actually. I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Tuesday, Whale Branch taking on Buford Academy, Hilton Head Prep. Again at Hardyville. That might be Hilton Head Christian, actually. Hilton Head Christian at Hardyville on Tuesday. Girls soccer, Hilton Head High School at Buford. That could be interesting. Boys lacrosse will be the, if I'm not mistaken, that will be the boys lacrosse 4A semifinals. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Because May River obviously is going to be in the semifinals. Who they play, I actually don't know. Because they beat Hilton Head 14-8 in the 2nd round on Friday, I believe. No, Saturday. Played them on Saturday. So then that should be very interesting on Tuesday. See how that one goes. And then high school boys tennis. The 1st rounds for both South Carolina High School Leagues 4A and 3A boys tennis tournaments begin. Wednesday, May River at Hilton Head again. May River at Bluffton, Buford at Hilton Head, and Bishop England at Colleton County for softball. Then on Thursday will be the 2nd round for boys tennis. And then Friday, the Peach Belt quarterfinals for college softball. Number 8, USCB taking on number 1, North Georgia. That's at 4:00 on Friday, and that will probably be on the Peach Belt Conference Network for sure. And then, of course, girls soccer, Battery Creek at Collin County, and then Beaufort High taking on Goose Creek in girls soccer on Friday. Hilton Head at May River for Game 3 of the boys baseball series. Barnwell at Collin County for high school softball, and then the girls lacrosse and boys lacrosse championship games will be on Friday as well for 4A level. So that should be also very interesting if May River can get through, as well as did someone else from girls lacrosse get through? Oh yeah, that's right. Hilton Head High School did. So Hilton Head High School is playing their semifinals. What day? Wait, what day are they playing the semifinals? Let's see here. I'm gonna look. That is on Monday. Hilton Head High School at Bishop England on Monday. If Hilton Head High School gets through against Bishop England, they will be playing on Friday, May 2nd for the South Carolina High School League 4A Girls Lacrosse State Championship. So that could be very interesting. Same goes for May River. If they win their game this week, they will also be playing on Friday, May 2nd for the Boys Lacrosse 4A state title. Then playoffs begin for baseball, boys soccer, and boys tennis will continue that following week. So a lot of decision making this week as to who or who doesn't get into the playoffs, and also decisions for semifinal matchups in lacrosse and potentially appearances this coming Friday in the state championship games. So a lot to go on this week. We will definitely be keeping you up to date with all of it. And we'll definitely start on Monday night with the LowcoSports Lowdown with myself, Justin Jarrett, and Wes Kerr, probably with some guests, including possibly WHHI's Marcus Walsh may join in. And of course, always in the comments will be Kevin Libby. So that'll be tomorrow night at around 9:30 tomorrow night. And we'll get you all updated on what happened with Monday's events. So that's going to do it for me. I appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. Thank you, viewers, for everything you do. Thank you for our sponsors of LowcoSports continuing to sponsor us and keeping us going and growing. And I will see you guys on Monday night. That's going to do it for us. I am Max Raj, and this has been the Mad Max Loco Recap.